Hey there, and welcome to this episode of the Onco PT podcast. I am so excited today to have someone who actually I've had other guests trying to get me to interview this guest on the podcast for several years now. And I finally made it happen, and it was all on me. I'm so thrilled to have Mari Gali here on the podcast. Mari, welcome to the Onco PT
Hello.
podcast.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh. So tell me about what you do, and then we'll get into kind of the meat and potatoes of our
Yes.
conversation.
Absolutely. So my name is, like you said, Mari Gali. I am an oncology acupuncturist here in Austin, Texas. So I am a licensed acupuncturist. I have my doctorate in acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and I specialize in oncology acupuncture. I work with a private clinic in Austin called Cancer Rehab and Integrative Medicine. And then
Hmm.
we also have a nonprofit, a sister nonprofit called Moving Beyond Cancer Collaborative.
So Angela is the one
Yes.
who, of course, introduced me to you via
Yes.
email probably a couple years ago. And so one of the cool things that I so appreciate about Angela is that she is doing everything that I want to do, but she's like 7 years in the future. And when she
Yeah.
started kicking around this idea of a nonprofit, I was like, oh my God, I'm obsessed.
Right.
And so now, fast forward, it's a thing. And y'all
And
have
we're
been
here.
doing this amazing work for a couple years now. Is that right?
Yes, it was a COVID, almost like a little COVID project for myself. We were closed down for 10 weeks and I had
Yeah.
never not worked or been in school or worked and been in school ever in my
Hmm.
life. And we had always wanted to start a nonprofit, but didn't know when we'd have the capacity or time or really be able to like look into it. So
Hmm.
I spent the 10 weeks, about I guess 3 years ago now, ordering all the nonprofit books, Nonprofit for Dummies books, Texas nonprofit books, and read up as much as I could. And
Hmm.
we did the formation in the summer of 2020, and we were approved in December of 2020 for a 501c3 organization. So we're very, very excited to do that. And so we've been running ever since. So almost 2.5 years.
Why a nonprofit? Because I know as a clinic owner, I have a capacity. I can do certain things with my
Mhm.
clinic that I couldn't do as like part of corporate practice or whatever. But I know that there's probably other things I could be doing, but I don't always know what those are. Why start a nonprofit in this oncology space?
Absolutely. So we are constantly seeing gaps in care and oncology care. Like
Hmm.
there's only so many problems that we can solve in our private clinic. I know for myself as an oncology acupuncturist, I treat patients like from the moment they're diagnosed through treatment onward, even hospice care. I will
Hmm.
go to patients' homes or hospice and treat any symptoms that we can treat to help make their lives as comfortable and improve quality of life. So with that, I do take insurance. Not all, most, a lot of acupuncturists and private PTs don't. I'm able to take insurance and I have a cash rate if not, but not everyone has insurance coverage and sometimes the cash rate is not affordable for people
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
as frequently as you need to come. Cancer is expensive, no matter where you're at. It is draining. So I always noticed, I had patients that with a private clinic, we're able to offer pro bono patients, if we need to,
Hmm.
or sliding scale to a degree, whatever is legal. But there's
Right.
always going to be, treating one pro bono patient a week is not actually solving a problem. So I saw that huge problem and realized that if we created a nonprofit where we were able to offer either sliding scale or donation based treatments,
Hmm.
we're going to be able to at least problem solve in Central Texas or a small part of Austin for now, and then develop a model that could hopefully, we hope to have grow. So that's why we started the nonprofit. Angela, when she first started Cancer Rehab almost 7 years ago now, would offer like one or two free exercise classes, which were
Hmm.
wonderful. They were donation based and they were in person only. When COVID hit, we all had to go online, which
Hmm.
ended up being kind of a blessing because now our outreach is so much greater. Um, and then with the nonprofit, because we can apply for grants and we can have fundraising and people are open to supporting nonprofits more than like a private clinic that happens to offer one or two free classes, we were
Hmm.
able to expand greatly. So there were a lot of perks with the idea of starting this nonprofit. And it has been definitely a labor of love. It is a lot of work, but it's been worth it.
As far as to go back to something that you said previously, like pro bono, visits for a patient once a week aren't actually solving a problem. And I think sometimes we think that, oh, it's a good fix, right? But it's
Right.
almost kind of a band-aid situation
Right.
in something that is like a big gaping wound. So can we talk a little bit about
Totally.
why do you think, in your opinion, and why do you think that pro bono visits are not the answer to this very systemic issue that we see in the oncology patient population?
Yeah, I think that, of course you're helping that one person, and I don't want to negate or diminish, minimize the
Yes.
work that we've done. But it's really not helping the whole system, and it's not problem. You're not creating a proper solution for a
Mm-hmm.
mass amount of people. In the cancer world, and there's so many of
Mm-hmm.
us in the cancer world, right? Like whether you're a
Yeah.
practitioner or caregiver or patient yourself, or you've been all three, which is a thing. um, just offering one or two or whatever we can do isn't always an option. So if we can establish a much more organized system
Mm-hmm.
where then there's no, also is like the scarcity mindset. There's a lot of things that go into owning your own practice and always getting, having that income that per treatment, which is what you do deserve as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're problem solving that as well. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but
I'm actually really glad you brought up the scarcity mindset, because I think that's
yeah,
something, especially in healthcare, especially in PT,
yes,
especially in oncology, we of course want to give of ourselves to our patients, right? Like, I don't know anybody
totally,
who got into cancer rehab because they're like, I'm going to make a shit ton of money and
right,
like do all this amazing stuff. It's like, no, I
yes,
want to help these people. And I think sometimes we are either like we put ourselves or we're put in situations where we are a little bit of like, there's a martyr mindset of like, I have to give and
yeah,
give and give of myself, and like, I'm not going to get paid, or I don't deserve to get paid, or I'm not going to make these patients pay for my services.
right,
And so I feel like it's this, we want to be able to give our services
mhm,
to patients, especially those who are most vulnerable, who most are in need of those
right,
services and who can't afford it, but at the expense of
and
ourselves. And I feel like the
yes,
nonprofit model, it
it
does, like, it
totally
totally
problem
works with both of
solves.
those.
And I was dealing with that for years. I get it 100% because I have been
Mm-hmm.
there and I have been like, oh, it's fine. I don't need to be paid today. It's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's lovely, but you cannot do that and also like, pay your bills. So I think
Absolutely.
the scarcity mindset with a lot of physicians and caregivers who, or a lot of physicians and care providers who also have to run a business. That's something that they don't teach us in PT or acupuncture school. They
Yeah.
don't, or med school. They don't teach the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like learning from one of my professors years ago, just learning about foot doctors, right? So people who would go from village to village and provide care, they didn't always necessarily receive money, but they'd receive lodging and food and like the things that we all have to now pay for to
Yep.
survive. So they were still given compensation. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very important to like remember that there needs to be some sort of exchange. And
Yep.
especially when you're building your own private practice, for all the onco PTs out there, you have to have that. Otherwise you'll get drained, and you don't want to be resentful over like, oh my gosh, what have I now done? Because that's a
Ooh.
thing too, right? I mean,
Yes.
that can build later on. You don't want to ever talk about that, but that's the truth. So
Yeah.
having now, like, with my practice as an oncology acupuncturist, if you have insurance coverage, great. If you don't, but you have the ability to pay cash rate, wonderful. And if you don't, we have a nonprofit. We have community acupuncture, donation based, $1 to $35, wonderful. So no one is being turned away. And I don't know if creating a nonprofit to problem solve, my that scarcity mindset that I maybe had 7 years ago. It's a big project to do, but it's worth
Yeah.
it, and it helps to know that now no one is turned away. There's a solution for everyone, and everyone's getting quality care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're talking about, the turning away of patients, because even when I was in corporate previously,
Yeah.
we, on paper, we said that we took all major insurance companies, right? Including Medicare, Medicaid. But when it
Mm-hmm.
came down to the nitty gritty of it, many of my patients who were on Medicaid were turned away.
Right.
And they had a cash pay rate, but for
Yeah.
a lot of the patients who were on Medicaid, that wasn't feasible. And so it was
Yeah.
very much a sorry, we can't do anything for you. And again, those are some of the most vulnerable patients. And again, like there wasn't a good fix. It was like,
Right.
if you don't fit into this mold that we have, you
Yeah.
don't get care. And maybe we could get you connected with another, clinic or
Mm-hmm.
practice down the street. A lot of times that unfortunately didn't happen though. And so again, like it's not just I think this would be a good idea. It's we are seeing this actually solving a need in our community that is so, so great, especially with that oncology patient population.
Right. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for saying that. I know that especially with Medicare, Medicaid, everyone has a fixed income at some point in their lives, right?
Right.
So, and PT is so important, but often the frequency, it's with same with acupuncture or massage or anything, it can be draining.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one little part of our nonprofit, and we also finally this past year we're able to launch a scholarship for to pay massage and skincare as well. So if anyone, it's small, it's growing, we're able to offer one skincare treatment, and this is different from facial for cosmetic reasons. So we're treating
Right.
patients who have been through radiation or chemotherapy has changed the quality of their skin, and we have an
Mm-hmm.
oncology esthetician that we're able to pay her full rate as well through the scholarship fund, and the patients
That's
are able
awesome.
to get a free treatment, which is wonderful. So it's growing. I know PT would be wonderful as well to add, and I wonder if we can always talk later too to see if that's something that the nonprofit should have. Yes, yeah, I'd love to go down that conversation as well.
So then what services, what opportunities is that your nonprofit helping
What are we
patients with now?
offering?
We've talked around it, but we haven't actually
Absolutely.
talked about it yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now we offer 12 free exercise classes weekly online or online Zoom and then in person. So that's
Mm-hmm.
yoga, chair yoga, Pilates, cardio, dance classes, guided meditations, qigong, everything. There's something for everyone and at all abilities. So when
Mm-hmm.
you are going through treatment, if all you can do is sit up, like lay on the couch or sit up, we have seated qigong for that, or we have like a seated
Mm-hmm.
Pilates or yoga. A lot of the classes where all of our instructors and trainers have advanced training in oncology care, so patients are able to say like, "Oh, I have this going on today," or "I'm going through this chemotherapy and these symptoms are coming up." All the trainers are able to adapt and like quick message the patient either separately or talk about it in the class, like, "Oh, let's do this instead." It is at no cost for anyone affected by cancer. So one of the things that Angela and I, when we started Cancer Rehab, when we started Moving Beyond Cancer Collaborative, we wanted to make sure that caregivers were also able to have access to these
Yeah.
classes and practitioners, because we know what it's like to get burned out and
Mm-hmm.
maybe like at the end of the day we don't want to have to drive to a yoga studio, but we can at least turn it on at home on our Zoom class.
Oh my God.
So 12 to 15 classes weekly, all at no cost to anyone affected by cancer, and specifically the patients or the clients who are cancer patients or have been through treatment. Many of the classes are meant to treat very common symptoms or side effects that we often see. So
Yeah.
things like, one example, qigong is amazing for neuropathy and energy, low energy fatigue. So each class has a purpose to not only like help and exercise and move and get your blood flowing,
Mm-hmm.
but also like let's treat some of the chronic side effects that we know
Oh my
come
God,
up.
that's so cool.
Yeah. So it has grown. It's been 2.5 years, but we have lots of work to do, but I feel like we have a good little foundation so far.
Oh my God. I couldn't believe. I mean, I say that. I can totally believe. Like with the brain power that is behind MBCC, one of the things that I and other people in the cancer rehab space talk about often is how quickly Cancer Rehab Integrative Medicine and NBC pivoted to really like, we are now facing again COVID, which we all had
Yeah.
great experiences with, right?
Right.
That whole pivoting of how you took the offerings and just moved them online so quickly, and the presence, the online presence that y'all were able to establish, and then have taken what what you learned, what you found that you liked, what the patients liked, what the caregivers liked, what they didn't like, and are now moving forward in 2023, excuse me, and beyond, with how can we meet the patients, the caregivers, etc., where they're at,
Yeah.
to address some of these impairments that maybe they don't need like a full cancer rehab, like they don't need to come
Right.
and see a physical therapist for an extended period of time on this. Some of them, would benefit, but right, some of them need and benefit from this very group experience where they can tune in from their own homes for the exercise
Right.
classes they want and whatever. I mean, it's just something to be commended and talked about, as far as you see a need in the community, and y'all were so quick to respond and say, all right, here's the need, here's the solution we're going to implement, and how well it's working. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you so much. I think that, and especially with the online things, Angela was much more savvy than I was. So she is like, she can work so fast and so hard and get everything sorted. um, but so yes, it took me like 6 months to figure out Zoom. I think when everyone was still like, "Hey, your camera's not on," but we were really grateful that we were able to pivot, and I think our patients they responded well and kind of let us know what they want. I think it was very
Yeah.
handy that we have good relationships with our patients, and they can tell
Yep.
us very directly, we want this, or we want to be back in person, or we want a hybrid. I need an
Mm-hmm.
option to be able to see someone in person, but maybe one day my white blood cell counts are low, so I need to stay home.
Yeah,
Because that's a thing, right? Like
that's
now people
totally
are
a thing.
still able to connect online, but they're not going to risk, any infection as well.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're able to have people. There's a woman from the UK that chimes in, and South Africa and Australia. So hopefully, and it'll continue to build. But realizing, and it's empowering. And I don't think we always necessarily have to talk about cancer during the exercise classes.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't come up. We're just exercising, and we um, happen to have gone through treatment or going through
Mm-hmm.
treatment too.
Mm-hmm.
So we're grateful for, I think, the community supporting us just as much as we want to support them.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see MBCC going in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, what do you
This
want it
is
to
such a
be
good
doing at
question.
that point?
Yes, I love collaborating. I always think, like, I'm a part of a couple other nonprofits here in town, and I think that continuing to collaborate with the others and filling in gaps of what they offer versus what we offer, or not,
Mm-hmm.
back and forth. I would love us to be in the infusion centers and be doing like hand massage or acupressure points. That's something that we're working on this year. In the future, in my big dream world, I want us to have the model that can be chapters in different
Yeah.
parts of the country, because this is not rocket science.
Right.
This can be done. There's, of course, like funding and the basic, nonprofit business side of things that need to
Mm-hmm.
happen. But there's no reason why this is a very simple model of providing care for those who need it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and providing, advanced trained professionals providing that care, which is also can easily be done. So, this year, short-term goals, we want to be able to continue our outreach, get as many people involved and participate in our classes and community acupuncture and everything, as many people as we can help as we can. But in the future, like, have this be an option where there can be chapters throughout the country would be great.
That is so
I'm a big
cool.
dreamer though, so but it can
Yeah.
happen.
It can
Why
totally
not?
happen.
It can happen.
And that's one of the things, Mari, this is something that my husband and I have had a couple conversations about. So I'm bringing this around, okay? I'm going to
Yeah,
take a left turn. I'm going to come back.
totally.
He's a part of an organization that was founded with a very pure intention, well intention of, we want to help, especially like moms going through breast cancer treatment.
Okay.
But what I'm seeing, and this is someone who is obviously like in oncology from this organization, nobody is actually involved in oncology. They're just like really
Okay.
well-meaning community members. And I feel like it's really hard to watch. Their funding is, they raise a lot of money, but that funding is going towards things that like man, it would be really great if we could get their hands on blah 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 for the patient or whatever. And so I feel like there's kind of a disconnect between sometimes what the patients need, what the patients want, and then what people will donate their money towards. And like there's a
Right.
way to connect it all. And so I really love what MBCC is doing, because I really feel like y'all are listening to what the patients want and what they need, and then connecting the funding to make those things happen. And I think that's like, it seems so silly, but
Right.
it's so big, and it's such a problem, especially like I said in my area. Like
Yeah.
there's money, but it's not being connected with the appropriate resources that patients want and they really need.
Totally. And like, where is money being spent in nonprofits? I mean, that's a totally different conversation, but it can,
Yeah.
people get frustrated too, right? Like, because they don't
Yeah.
know, um, overhead and admin and everything. And we work really hard as an executive director. Like, this is still a labor of love for me.
Yeah.
So there is all the payments are going to the instructors
Yeah.
and the acupuncturist doing the acupuncture, which is really nice. So the patients, anyone donating knows it's going directly to the care of the people receiving treatments.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of like interviewing that first year and a half, and we still check in and do surveys and everything. But I interviewed a lot of like
Yeah.
young survivor groups or cancer community networks here in town. The Live Strong
Mm-hmm.
organization has
Yeah.
different support groups that I chatted with, and I realized what I thought people wanted, they did not necessarily want, or they were really blunt about, yeah, like they didn't
Interesting.
necessarily need, I don't know, an in-person super extra, major cardio class when they're going through treatment, they can't get off their couch. So
Yeah.
like that's where like the chair options came in, or
Mm-hmm.
just like shorter exercise videos that we have on our website, because
Mm-hmm.
an hour is a long time to work out when you're
It is a long
exhausted. So we do
time.
have, you know, um, different shortened options too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's also good, like doing the work and figuring out what do people actually want versus what I think they would want, or you know,
Yeah.
because it's often not always the same. Yeah.
So this kind of leads into my next question, which is a little more on how are you assessing and determining what is the next appropriate step or like path for MBCC to be taking? Like,
Yeah,
there's an opportunity and you're like, maybe this would be a good idea. How are you, determining and then deciding, yep, we're going to move forward with this. No, we're not going to move
totally.
forward with that.
We always look at, if say there's like a subject of, let's use the example of doing massage in an infusion room.
Mm-hmm.
We first want to clear out, is anyone else doing that? Because I am not in the business of
Yeah.
like stepping on anyone's toes or like
Yeah.
taking a resource away from another nonprofit. So first, is someone else already doing this? No. Then we go back and I check in with social workers, nurse navigators, and then
Mm.
patients and see, like, is this a good idea? Like, do you think this would be an option?
Right.
Um, are you hearing any feedback from patients? And I know that I am a part of another nonprofit in town, and we had a lot of feedback from infusion patients there saying, why can't we just have like a hand massage when we're resting or something? So something like that. And then so getting that feedback from a few people, and then being able to send like surveys out to our email groups, and then talking with the social workers who see people every day, and
Mm-hmm.
they know more than what I know.
Yeah.
So figuring out who knows, who has the information, and how can I visit with them and get it. So that's something so that's why we're working on that next, is
Mm-hmm.
having massage in the infusion centers, because we did get feedback from three different sources, and we checked, okay, no one else is offering that in Austin.
Yeah.
So that's one way that we go about it.
I am obsessed with the fact that you're bringing in social work into all of this. Like, I feel like the oncology social workers that I've encountered, it's like they know everything, or they know pretty darn close to everything, and
Yeah.
they have such a bigger consideration for like what is happening in this patient's realm, and like connecting that with the different medical treatment and side effects and like the financial implications. That it's
Right.
not something that I have a lot of exposure to all the time, and so I really really love that y'all are bringing in social work, because again they have such sometimes like a 30,000 foot view of like the whole patient and what's going on with them. I mean, we need to be, I know
Yes.
I need to be doing better about that, because they know so much and they think about these things like I don't.
They know all the things. Yes, totally. And they, even just like, where do we have our community acupuncture location? Is there public transportation? If there's not,
Yes.
that's not a good location for people. Social workers are amazing at doing those three steps ahead that
Yeah.
maybe we're not quite there yet, or we have to wait until we get feedback from patients. And by that time, they've been affected by
Yes.
whatever just wrong decision we made. So yeah, social workers, they're just the best. We try to give like, the cancer rehab has multiple times given like give back days to social workers here in town, like
Oh, that's
having like
awesome.
chair massage or yoga nidra or sound bath or something, just so
Mm-hmm.
they really appreciate it, but also like receive care, so their own burnout rate is not
Mm-hmm.
not nearly as high. Um, but yes, they're wonderful. And I think that, I memean, as an onco PT or onco acupuncturist, there's there's a lot to learn. And like, I know I've taken the oncology patient navigator training just so I could have a
Ooh.
little bit more.
Yeah.
That's something, I don't know, if the audience here are professionals or practitioners, that's something
Mm-hmm.
totally worth taking. There are free options online within, oh, I can figure out which university. Yeah, is it? I have to go back and look. I took it years ago. A university on the East Coast offered free
Okay.
training. It's like
Oh my God.
26 hours of lecture for oncology patient navigator training that
Oh
it's worth
my God.
doing just to have a little bit more insight. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, of course, not as much as a social worker, but at least we know the barriers and figuring out problem solving, that
Absolutely.
because we have conversations with our patients, every day, that we see different problems and just need to know like who can we reach out to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if
Yeah.
you don't know the
Right.
answer, you know
Yeah.
who would know the answer
Right.
potentially for that patient. I think that's a really, really
Definitely.
important role to play in cancer rehab. Absolutely.
Definitely.
What has been the response to
Yes.
MBCC? You know, like you and I are on this end and we're like, wow,
Right.
all these amazing things.
Right.
What's kind of been the, how has it been going? How are people
Right.
responding? How are both like patients but also caregivers and even practitioners responding to it?
Yes, I think it's growing. I know the first year is just all about telling practitioners about us,
Yeah.
and having to educate, like, hey, this is why your patients actually do need these services. They need
Mhm.
comprehensive care. Like, they need to have access to exercise programs, because exercise programs that's even expensive to have a monthly membership at a
Absolutely.
yoga studio. So we've had generally really positive feedback, and very grateful for the support of different cancer centers here in town, and different just individuals in town who believe
Mhm.
in us. And I think that we're definitely still growing. Like, our numbers, each class, we have like 15 to 20 people, sometimes less than that, but each class every week, it is growing. We've been able to serve, over, I guess, as of this past January, like 4,000 participants have taken
Oh my
part into our
god.
classes
Oh
in
my
2 years.
god.
So it's growing, it's there. And the community acupuncture, we are full every week, which is exciting. So we're adding another shift in
So
another
exciting.
location in town. So it's been positive. We're still, I think, I'm always learning. We're always learning.
Of
But we've
course.
been grateful to have that feedback. And I know, like, I'm sure you as well, we have to always educate oncologists on what we do, the evidence base behind it. Evidence based research is very,
That's
very
huge.
important to us. Yes, and like, it all sounds great, but if it doesn't actually show that it works and helps, then
Mhm.
that's hard to get backing. But at least with, there's the Society of Integrative Oncology always has wonderful research available to show that this more comprehensive cancer care model is what patients benefit from the most, and they also deserve. So the nonprofit is able to use that to at least support our efforts. Yeah.
And Mari, I have so many thoughts. Like, honestly, this goes so many different directions. But, one of the things that patients talk about, I think, most commonly with me, and I'm curious if you get this conversation, but I see my patients mainly after they have finished treatment or when they're finishing treatment. So we're kind of on the other end of they've been diagnosed. It's usually a year and a half after diagnosis when they're coming to see me. And a lot of times I hear two things. I say, I wish I had known about this earlier.
Yes.
And the other big thing is I feel like after I was done with treatment, and of course, like not actually, but I kind of feel like I got drop kicked out of the clinic and now I don't know what to do. And there's it's like a cliff that patients just kind of drop off, or they feel like they're dropped off after they finish treatment, and there's no real like transition back to a quote real life or like life after cancer kind of deal. And I feel like this has such an opportunity to be kind of that like
the transition
for
period.
patients. Yeah, to transition. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, I see that a lot with my patients, and I know we're a little different as an oncology acupuncturist. I'm able to I see people throughout treatment, and then at the end, once they're done, and then or sometimes once they've stopped and neuropathy or those long-term side effects have kicked in, and I see them. But I always talk about, and like people always talk about the fourth trimester postpartum. Like this is their fourth trimester. Like it takes a year minimum to recover from cancer treatment. Your body still needs support psychologically. You just went from adrenaline carrying you through one of the most traumatic long events, and now you like have glitter thrown at you and ring the bell, and your schedule's wide open, and you don't know what to do with that wide open schedule. Now, and it's there's a major gap in that, and so we definitely try to work on that. And I always warn my patients, this might be coming for you, and it's okay if you're having these feelings. This is what we can do to support you. And always having a talk therapist is really important during treatment, but sometimes after treatment, because sometimes it's not until after treatment that patients start having having the need for psycho-emotional support, because they just realize like what just happened to me, and now what is really scary. So at least with our nonprofit, it's a community of anyone ever affected by treatment. You can be 10 years out, you can be 10 weeks out, or you could be actively going through it. And you can talk about it as much as you want or not talk about it at all. But you can still have something that that you're nourishing and taking care of yourself during that time. Yes.
That fourth trimester analogy is perfect. We need a phrase, like a catchphrase for that for the oncology, because I don't know what it is.
I don't either. And I've been using that analogy for years, but we need our own. Yeah.
Oh my God. That is, oh my God. Mari, that is perfect.
To brainstorm.
It's literally perfect.
Yes. But it is so true. And it is hard, because I have patients who have PTSD, diagnosed PTSD, but they don't know it until a year after their treatment's done, and they're driving by a cancer center and they're triggered. And they had been moving along just fine up until then. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I know that there's a nonprofit in Austin. They're just starting. Like I'm a part of it, and we're just kind of doing brainstorm meetings and how are we going to form it, where it'll be a retreat center for patients to go to for a week. Yeah. For a week long after treatment, to try to figure out that what now, and give them resources so they're not completely dropped off the cliff. But that's one. But yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done for sure.
Oh my God. That That's so cool though. And I mean, like, what a great way, again, oh my God, I feel like we could talk about this all day, Mari. Like,
Yeah.
what a great way to, again, like, kind of soften that blow of, like you said, the adrenaline carrying you for a year and a half, however
Right.
long that your cancer treatment is, to kind of where it's like, okay, we're not going to be seeing the oncologist every
Right.
week or every other week like you've been for the last year. Like,
Yeah.
here's, now that you have all this time on your hands, like, how can you be taking care of your body? How can you learn to expect? Because, I mean, like, how many patients do you see where it's, they're done with treatment and then that's where maybe they were having impairments or side effects, but they
Mm-hmm.
were kind of like muted,
Yeah.
or maybe they weren't
Right.
in the forefront, and then they just kind of emerge all of a sudden. I
Right.
mean, oh,
And you
that's
probably
really
see it
cool.
with like balance and musculoskeletal issues probably all the time. Like
Yes,
neuropathy for a lot of
all the
people
time.
doesn't even hit them until their last round of chemo. But by
Yep.
then they're down to seeing their doctor every 3 months. So
Yep.
that is what I'm sure PTC often is. You're dealing with that effect. Yeah.
Austin sounds like y'all are really on the ball when it comes to like oncology
Yeah.
nonprofits, like thinking ahead, and I'm really, really jealous because we need that here in Fort Worth.
We will come. I will we'll figure it out. Let me just have this little baby and then we'll that's our
Oh my
next
god.
phase. I would love that. I like I'm from Wisconsin originally, which
Oh
and
my
people don't
god.
like think of Wisconsin as integrative or anything. But I growing up the Mayo Clinic is there's like a beautiful line between the Twin Cities, the Mayo Clinic,
Mm-hmm.
Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and then Chicago. And so
Yep.
there's so much medical research, and I grew up with integrative medicine. So I grew up
Mm-hmm.
with if I had migraines, my doctor, and I'm rural Wisconsin, would make me go to acupuncture first before giving
Oh
me,
my god.
a prescription because I was I was 14, 15, too young for
Mm-hmm.
that. But there are centers in different parts of the country that they're trying to do that, or at least they're referring
Mm-hmm.
out. And then when I moved down here, we realized like, oh, education is key and continuing to educate
Yeah.
practitioners. So I know that you're doing that in Fort Worth and Dallas Fort Worth, but we just have to keep chugging along.
Yeah.
It's like you're gonna recognize my voice eventually. Some of these doctors who
Oh my god.
I keep pinging,
Yes.
or just to keep
Mm-hmm.
reminding these are this is a model that works and patients
Mm-hmm.
are grateful for it. Um, but yeah, I know in Milwaukee the Aurora Hospital System did a wonderful pilot program of having acupuncturists in the ER. Um,
Oh
so this
my
whole sidebar.
god.
Yeah,
That's
so when you came in with
amazing.
pain, you could do acupuncture first and then have like a lower dose of whatever pain management medication that they needed.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about that model and pivoting it to oncology care is absolutely plausible, right?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed. I actually just had a physical therapist who is in the emergency room in Colorado on the
Oh,
podcast a few months
awesome.
ago. And
Oh
I
my
mean, it's the
gosh.
same thing. Like, how can we reach people where they're
Yeah.
at when they're in pain or when they're having XYZ symptom, side effect,
Right.
impairment of cancer treatment earlier to make these changes, make these meaningful impacts in their quality of life that
Right.
ultimately do transition and translate over into like potential better tolerance of treatment and better side.
Absolutely.
Oh my god, Mari.
Totally.
Oh my god.
That's huge. I know. Yes, there's so much work that we can do. We'll just keep going.
We're gonna keep
Especially,
going.
yeah, I think like talking to patients when they're actively going through treatment
Mm-hmm.
and then talking with the oncologist to let them know why it's so important
Yeah.
is the way to
Oh
go.
my god.
We'll get there.
How can my listeners, so physical therapists throughout the
Yes.
US and maybe even beyond the US, how can they find out more information about MBCC? How can they follow MBCC's journey?
Yes, thank you so much. So you can always go to our website or Instagram, Facebook, mbccollaborative.org is our website. So it's going to be to see MBCCOLLABR. ABORATIVE.org. A little wordy, so I just say mbccollaborative.org. Or you can just Google search MBCC and we pop up.
Perfect.
just telling, I think really we're always so grateful for people to spread the word about us, spread the word about our services. Like the more people we help, the more people we can tell that we've helped. And then that increases funding to keep us going, ultimately. So that is wonderful. And then also just any feedback. I am always asking people for honest feedback, especially these first early years. Like we want to know like any ideas that other PTs have or any problems that they see that maybe we're not covering, but we could easily find a solution and do that. You can always email me either info@mbccollaborative.org or Mari, Mari, at mbccollaborative.org.
Oh my God. Mari, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you so much.
Oh my God, of course. Lovely. It was long overdue. Like I said at the beginning, like Angela has been trying to get me to reach out to you, and I just haven't. And so I'm so thrilled that I finally did. Side note, we're definitely going to have you back on the podcast so we can talk about oncology acupuncture.
Oh, I would love that.
Because that is long overdue also.
Yes. So. That sounds great. Whenever you want. Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.